If you've got these 7 shadow powers, even demons can't touch you. Let me tell you something most people will never say out loud. Your light doesn't scare demons. Your affirmations, your positivity, your clean aura, your sage smoke, it's beautiful, yes. But it's not what keeps darkness away. In fact, sometimes it attracts it. Because what the dark fears most isn't the surface glow, it's the depth underneath. It's the shadow powers that you've buried, denied, or misunderstood your whole life. The ones that, when activated, don't just defend you, they transform you into a being so complete, so sovereign, that even entities from other realms have no entry point. That's what we're here to talk about. Because if you've got these 7 shadow powers awakened within you, even demons can't touch you. And I'm not just talking about folklore demons, I'm talking about energetic parasites, toxic people, situations that drain your life force, spiritual interference, ancestral trauma loops, and yes, even your own inner saboteur. These powers are not light in the traditional sense. They are forged in fire. And the first step to accessing them is to stop pretending you don't have a shadow. We all have a shadow. It's the part of us that the world told us to suppress. The rage, the lust, the shame, the hunger, the selfishness, the wildness, the primal instincts, the parts that didn't fit the script of goodness we were handed. But what if I told you that these parts aren't your weakness, they're your untapped strength? That the very traits you've tried to hide are actually the keys to a kind of spiritual power you were never supposed to discover. Because once you own them, not indulge them blindly, not act them out unconsciously, but own them with awareness, they become your armor, your sword, your shield. That's what demons fear. Not your light, but your wholeness.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
The first shadow power is radical self-honesty. It might sound simple, but it's the foundation of everything. Most people lie to themselves every day about what they want, what they feel, who they are, what they tolerate. And those lies create cracks in your energy field, and they make you penetrable. But when you become radically honest, even when it's ugly, even when it shatters your image, you become impenetrable. Because you're no longer hiding anything. You're not running from your truth. And that kind of transparency with yourself removes the hooks that any dark force could use. Demons feed on denial. They drink from the well of "I'm fine" when you're not. But when you say, "This is what I feel, this is what I fear, this is what I want," even if it's messy, you take your power back. You become too real to manipulate. The second shadow power is sacred rage. Yes, you heard that right. Rage is holy. Suppressed anger doesn't disappear, it festers. It turns inward. It becomes depression, apathy, chronic fatigue, autoimmune disease, emotional numbness. But when you reclaim your anger not as destruction, but as protection, you awaken a force that says, "I will not be mistreated. I will not abandon myself. I will not tolerate what violates my soul." That voice, that energy, it's terrifying to darkness. Because it's the voice of someone who has remembered their boundaries. Sacred rage isn't about lashing out. It's about roaring the truth when silence has been killing you. It's about saying no without guilt. It's about standing in your fire without apology. And when you do that, when you embody the lion instead of suppressing it, you radiate a frequency that darkness cannot stand. Because that fire purifies everything. The third shadow power is energetic discernment. This isn't just intuition, it's precision. It's the ability to feel the energy behind words, behind smiles, behind offers. It's the power to say, "This looks right, but something feels off," and actually listen to that knowing. You can't fake this. You can't read it in a book. It only comes from experience, from being burned, from ignoring your gut and paying the price. But once this power awakens, you become your own oracle. You stop outsourcing your safety to gurus, to systems, to spiritual bypassing. You trust your body like a compass. And that trust becomes your protection. Because darkness often wears light's clothing. It speaks in flattery. It hides behind spiritual jargon. But discernment cuts through all of it. It says, "I see you. I feel you. I know what you are." And when you can see clearly, you can't be deceived. The fourth power, one of the most misunderstood, is shadow integration. This is when you stop trying to kill your ego and instead befriend it. When you stop demonizing your own darkness and start asking, "What are you here to teach me?" Integration is alchemy. It's the process of turning your wounds into wisdom, your triggers into teachers. Most people try to escape their shadow by pretending to be more spiritual. But you go deeper. You sit with your shame. You ask your fear what it's protecting. You hold your inner child when they're screaming. And because of that, you become whole. And wholeness is power. Because when you've made peace with every part of yourself, there's nothing left for the dark to exploit. So I have to ask you something most won't dare to ask. What part of yourself have you been trying to kill in the name of being good? And what if that part isn't evil but powerful, sacred, and misunderstood? Think about it. Sit with it. Because the next three powers will demand even deeper awareness and even more radical embodiment. They're not for the faint of heart. They're for those ready to walk as warriors, not in battle with the dark, but in mastery of their own frequency. The invincible frequency, how your shadow becomes a shield that protects you from all spiritual attacks. Once you've looked into the mirror of your own shadow and refused to look away, something irreversible happens. You begin to radiate a different frequency, not one of fear or fragility, but of silent, sovereign power. This is the invincible frequency. It doesn't shout. It doesn't seek. It doesn't beg for validation. It simply is. You walk into a room and the energy shifts, not because you're trying to dominate, but because you're anchored. You're not pretending to be whole, you are whole. And in the unseen realms where energies, entities, and intentions move faster than light, this frequency is like a force field. It tells every being, this soul knows who they are. There is no entry point here. And that's not just metaphor, it's energetic law. Because when you move from fragmented to integrated, you close every door that darkness could use to crawl in. Now the fifth shadow power emerges, emotional alchemy. This is the ability to sit with dense emotions like grief, jealousy, envy, despair, and not collapse, not project, not escape, but transmute. When you can sit in grief and let it open you instead of shut you down, when you can feel envy and trace it to the part of you that's still hungry for your own light, when you can surf the waves of despair without reaching for a distraction, you become untouchable. Why? Because most spiritual attacks don't come from outside. They come from unprocessed emotions inside. They hide in the shame you won't feel. They breed in the loneliness you deny. But when you alchemize these emotions, when you sit with them like sacred guests, they lose their power. You become the master of your emotional realm. And demons, They can't swim in still waters. They thrive in chaos. They feed on suppression. But when you hold your pain with presence, you become a temple too sacred for them to enter. The sixth shadow power is unshakable self-belonging. This one changes everything, because the moment you no longer seek permission to exist, to speak, to take up space, you become dangerous to every system built on control. You belong to yourself, fully. You don't need to be liked. You don't need to fit in. You don't need to be understood. You don't even need to be seen. You are enough simply by being. And this kind of belonging, it terrifies lower energies, because their access point is always your insecurity. The moment you doubt your worth, they have something to latch onto. But when you stand in the knowing that you are divine, messy, powerful, and worthy all at once, there's no crack in your field. No hook, no entry. You become a closed circuit of sovereignty. And this isn't about arrogance. It's about truth. When you know who you are, you don't need to prove it. You embody it. And that embodiment is what protects you. The seventh and final shadow power is the most transcendent. It is death mastery. But this doesn't mean you want to die. It means you've made peace with the impermanence of all things. You've stopped clinging to identity, to form, to control. You've died so many ego deaths that the idea of loss no longer paralyzes you. And this is the highest frequency of all, because fear of death is the root of all fear. It's what every manipulative system, every dark force, every toxic relationship uses to keep you small. You'll lose love. You'll lose status. You'll lose control. But when you've already let go, what can they take? When you've already faced your own void and found yourself still breathing, still being, what threat can touch you? This is what makes you immortal in the spirit. Not invincible in the body, but eternal in essence. You're no longer ruled by survival. You're moved by soul. And that makes you fearless. So now I ask you, not as entertainment, but as soul initiation. What are you still terrified to lose? And what if your attachment to it is the very thing holding your power hostage? Because until you're willing to let it die, whether it's an identity, a dream, a relationship, or a version of yourself, you'll never know the freedom of resurrection. And resurrection isn't just about coming back. It's about coming back different, wiser, wilder, whole. You've now seen all 7 shadow powers: radical self-honesty, sacred rage, energetic discernment, shadow integration, emotional alchemy, self-belonging, death mastery. Together, they form a shield. Not a shield of avoidance or denial, but of embodiment. This shield doesn't block the world out. It lets the truth in. It makes you permeable to love, but immune to manipulation. You still feel everything, but you don't become everything. You remain centered, even in chaos. And that kind of presence, it's unshakable. It's unforgettable. It's untouchable. The demon-proof soul, why wholeness is the highest protection in any realm. Let's go deeper beyond the surface of power, beyond the mechanics of protection, and into the very soul of this spiritual reality. You've heard people speak of demons as if they're lurking in the corners of dark rooms, hiding in shadows, feeding on fear. And while there's some truth in that, because energy does cluster around frequency, the real battlefield isn't out there. It's in here, inside your psyche, inside your decisions, inside your unhealed wounds and forgotten truths. That's where the true spiritual war is fought. And that's why wholeness, not force, not denial, not even light alone, is the highest protection in any realm. You see, the fragmented soul is vulnerable. It leaks, it doubts, it chases love, it hides its rage, it covers its sadness with smiles and filters. It tries to be holy while secretly feeling hollow. And darkness always finds the cracks. It doesn't need to knock down your door. It enters through the places you're not willing to look. But a whole soul, a soul that has met its rage and loved it, a soul that has faced its shame without flinching, a soul that holds its grief like sacred water and its ego like a younger sibling. That soul doesn't just survive the dark, it transcends it. Because wholeness is impenetrable. Not because it's armored, but because its nothing is hidden. Nothing is repressed. Nothing is disowned. And if nothing is disowned, then nothing can be used against you. Imagine this: a demon approaches a being who has integrated their shadow. It whispers, "You are not enough." But the being smiles and says, "I know. And I love myself anyway." The demon says, "You're full of rage." And the being replies, "Yes, it's sacred. It protects what matters." The demon hisses, "You're selfish." And the being breathes deeply, sometimes. And that's how I reclaim my energy when I've given too much. There's nothing to hook, no guilt, no shame, no hidden fear, just truth. And what can darkness do with truth? Nothing. It feeds on illusion. It thrives in denial. But in the presence of wholeness, it starves. This is not about perfection. In fact, the pursuit of perfection is one of the greatest traps. But because perfection is a performance. Wholeness is a presence. Perfection says, "Look at me, I've transcended." Wholeness says, "I've descended into every part of myself and made peace with what I found." Perfection is exhausting. Wholeness is grounding. And the more grounded you are, the harder it is for anything spiritual, emotional, energetic to knock you off center. Because you're rooted in something deeper than image, you're rooted in essence. And that essence is your weapon. It's your protection. It's your North Star. You don't need a dozen rituals to protect yourself when you are the ritual. You don't need to chant 1,000 mantras to feel safe when your very presence is a prayer. You don't need to run from the dark when you've already befriended your own. And here's the paradox: the deeper you go into your shadow, the more light you naturally radiate. Not the kind of light that blinds, the kind that sees. The light of awareness and of compassion, of embodiment. And that light doesn't repel darkness, it integrates it. It changes the room without a word. It destabilizes manipulation without a fight. It heals through presence, not pressure. So I want to ask you something now, deeply, honestly. Are you living as a whole soul, or are you still negotiating with parts of yourself you've labeled unworthy? Because the demon-proof soul isn't the one who's never been afraid. It's the one who stopped running. It's the one who sat with their fear until it revealed its wisdom. It's the one who hugged their inner saboteur and said, "You were only ever trying to protect me." It's the one who made space for their inner chaos until it no longer needed to scream. That's the soul that walks through fire and doesn't burn. That's the soul that stands in storms and doesn't sway. And that's the soul that becomes a threat to every force that feeds on fragmentation. You don't need to escape the dark. You need to understand it, to see it, to know where it lives inside you. Because once you do, it loses its power. Not because it disappears, but because you're no longer afraid to face it. And when you stop fearing your own shadow, you stop fearing anything at all. The final seal, living as a guardian of your own frequency. We've come to the edge now, the final layer. You've walked through the valley of your own shadow, faced truths you were taught to fear, and awakened powers you didn't know you held. But awakening is only the beginning. Integration is the path, and guardianship, that's the final seal. Because power, once awakened, must be protected. Not with walls, not with fear, but with vigilant devotion to your frequency. Because your frequency is sacred. It is the sum total of your choices, your presence, your boundaries, your truth. It is what you allow. It is what you embody. It is the invisible field that speaks for you before you say a word. And when you truly become the guardian of that field, nothing, not energy vampires, not toxic dynamics, not even entities from other realms can pierce your peace. But here's the secret most people miss. Spiritual protection is not about defense, but it's about alignment. When your inner world is aligned, when your thoughts match your truth, when your actions match your soul, but when your emotions are honored instead of suppressed, you become naturally protected. Because you are not leaking energy. You are not betraying yourself. You are not living in contradiction. And contradiction is where distortion breeds. But coherence is where God lives. It's where your higher self moves through you moment by moment, whispering, this way, not that way. Trust this, release that. And when you trust that voice, when you live in alignment with it, you don't need to fear attack. You are unavailable to frequencies that no longer match your truth. So what does it mean to live as a guardian of your own frequency? It means you curate your life like a temple. You choose your thoughts like sacred seats. You speak with intention. You say no when your body tightens. You say yes when your soul expands. You don't entertain energies that drain you, no matter how familiar. You don't shrink to keep others comfortable. You don't explain your boundaries like apologies. You don't justify your joy. You protect it, fiercely, daily, quietly. Not because you're afraid, but because you honor the energy it took to come this far. Even now, as you read this, something inside you is remembering, not learning, remembering. Because this isn't new information, it's ancient truth. It's what your soul has always known, that you were never meant to be at war with the dark. You were meant to transcend it, not by avoiding it, but by integrating it. Not by resisting it, but by embodying your own wholeness so completely that the dark has no place to land. And that's what the final seal is. It's not something you do once. It's something you become. A living boundary, a breathing prayer, a walking vortex of clarity so strong that anything misaligned either rises to meet you or falls away. And that's the truth no one tells you. That the more you live in your power, the more you will lose. People, patterns, even parts of yourself. It will feel like death. And it is. But on the other side of that death is liberation. Not the kind you post about. The kind you live, quietly, consistently, in every breath, every choice, every boundary. That's what makes you untouchable. Not your crystals, not your affirmations, but your integrity. Because demons don't fear your rituals, they fear your wholeness. They fear the version of you that no longer needs to be saved. The version that remembers, I was never broken. I was only buried. So I leave you with this one question, one final key to unlock your guardianship. What would your life look like if you treated your energy as sacred as your breath? And are you willing to live that way, even if no one else understands? Because if you are, then congratulations. You're not just surviving the spiritual battlefield. You've become the terrain. And no demon, no distortion, no external force can stand on ground that belongs only to the sovereign soul. You've sealed it. You've embodied it. And now you are it.